Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. I always like Thursdays on Sesshin. Kind of, it's not the end, but we're all settled down, and it's a lovely day outside. It's a blessing. Okay. I want to preface what I'm going to talk about today. I wanted to continue with the conversation we had on Tuesday, and to some degree, and then talk later about practice. But I wanted to preface it by saying that whatever I say, I want you to all really remember that there is only one reality. Only one. And that one reality is created and manifested in only one body. And whose body is that? Each of our own, yeah. So if I slip into a kind of dualistic, or what I wanted to also say was that to thank Roshi for his talk yesterday, because much better than I, he completely embodied in the talk that one reality without slipping into back and forth, which is really hard to do. So thank you. But I wanted to start with a joke, because I remember that Morris asked me for a new joke, and this isn't a new joke, Morris, I'm afraid. This is an old joke, but I really like it, so I'm going to indulge myself and tell you it again. And it's kind of appropriate to what we've been talking about, and all the people from Liverpool have heard it, so apologies. But it's about the, I have to remember it, it's about the agnostic, dyslexic, insomniac. Agnostic, dyslexic, insomniac. And do you know what they do? They lie awake at night wondering if there's a dog. It tickles me, that joke, sorry. Okay. So this is also a bit of indulgence for me, because I wanted to talk today, and it's quite hard to see with all these things. Does this have to be there? Can that go on the deck? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if any of you heard of Matsu. Matsu? I didn't hear of him. I didn't know. You know of him. Matsu.
Yeah, he's Baso too.
Is he Baso as well?
Matsu is his Chinese name.
Ah, it's Baso. Okay, well that explains it then. Okay, so Baso rather tickles me, or Matsu. Call him Matsu because that's the name I've got in the notes. So I may have the story wrong, but remember the story of the monk that was sitting in Zazen, and the master came around and asked him what he was doing, and he said he was sitting to become Buddha. And the master picked up a tile that had fallen off the roof and started to polish it. And the monk said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm trying to turn this into a mirror." And he said, "Well, you can't turn a tile into a mirror." And of course the master said, "And you can't become a Buddha." Now, why, you all know why you can't become a Buddha, is that? You all know why. Is that right? You all know why you can't become a Buddha?
Because he is a Buddha.
Pardon? He already is one, yeah. Yeah, he is one already. And this, was it Baso who's the monk or the master in that story?
Well, Nangaku is the master.
Is the master.
Baso's the monk. Okay,
that explains it then. That's it. Thank you. That lines me up with the story, because this may explain why Baso or Matsu went the way he went. And I'm not going to tell you why, but I'll ask you why a bit later when I quote what he said. That he got in trouble with his contemporaries, serious trouble for what he said. And but I like him a lot. And this is what he said. I'm going to find it. Okay. The absolute and the phenomenal are without difference. Both are wonderful functions. All are because of the revolving of the mind, and there is no other principle. Whatever is established comes from the one mind. One can construct it or sweep it away. Either way, it is a wonderful function, and the wonderful function is oneself. It is not that there is a place to stand where one leaves the truth, but the very place where one stands is the truth. This is the essence of oneself. If it is not so, then who is one? All dharmas are Buddha Dharma, and all dharmas are liberation. Liberation is thusness, and all dharmas never leave thusness. Walking, abiding, sitting and lying, all these are inconceivable functions which do not wait for a timely season. And then he goes on to say, if you want to know the way directly, then ordinary mind is the way. What is ordinary mind? It means no intentional creation and action, no right or wrong, no grasping or rejecting, no terminable or permanent, no profane or holy. The sutra says, neither the practice of ordinary men nor the practice of sages, that is the practice of the bodhisattva. Now all these are just the way, walking, abiding, sitting, lying, responding to situations and dealing with things. Now, why do you think he got into trouble for saying that?
Not very holy.
Not very holy, no, not very holy.
Is it making a difference between experts and lay people?
Yeah, no difference between monks and lay people. Yeah. You're warm. You're getting warm. You're good. That's it. All these are near the truth. Why did he get into trouble?
People would wonder why they're practicing. Ordinary mind is the way.
Yeah.
Why practice?
Why practice? Yeah, exactly. Which may have come out of the interaction he had when he was sitting to become a Buddha, and he realised, I am a Buddha. Of course, Dogen had a whole different response to it. He wanted to know why would I practice if I'm already a Buddha? And he went off and sorted it. But maybe Matsu didn't. Matsu accepted it maybe at face value, given what he's read, what he says, and the trouble he later got into. So all these things, right? Yeah, why practice? And no difference between lay people and monks. Too holy or not holy enough? Sorry. Yeah. So, should I read you what a contemporary said of him? He said it was called the Hung Chu school. The Hung Chu school teaching led to a radical non-dualism that believed that all actions, good or bad, are expressing the essential Buddha nature, but therefore denies the need for spiritual cultivation and moral discipline. This would be a dangerous lack of obligation in observing a moral law. It eliminated all moral distinctions and validated any actions as expressions of the essence of Buddha nature. That's interesting, eh? So, why do we need to behave morally? Why do we have precepts?
Because without seeing into our true nature fully, we're liable to screw up.
Screw up, yeah, that's... Okay. So without really getting down to the bone, we're likely to act immorally. And what will be the problem with acting immorally?
Causes suffering.
Causes suffering, yeah. To who?
Yourself and others.
To yourself and others, yeah. And is that a pragmatic view, or does that stand on something?
It stands on the precept.
Pardon?
It stands on the precept of doing good for others and refraining.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, why do we need to stand by that? Why should we?
So that the world is a better place. So that the world is a better place.
For who?
For me and for everyone.
Okay.
I met a monk once who actually said you shouldn't try and keep the precepts, from the sense that I think his logic was that you either do or you don't, and that to and that sort of actions come from karma, and therefore what happens, and therefore actually trying to keep them was
Okay, but what's your experience?
I completely disagreed with him, but it made me really, really look at it and really think of it.
Okay.
That there are people who think that you shouldn't.
Okay, yeah.
I met a Theravadan monk once,
Yeah.
and I asked him what, being very arrogant, I said, why do you keep all those 400 and some precepts, or 200? And he very simply said, they make me happy.
Okay, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, touching. Yeah, and that. We're really getting down to the reality now. That the Buddha didn't arrive with stone tablets from on high, telling us how we should live or shouldn't live. He was, as they say, he was a doctor. He saw there was the issue was suffering. What's the pragmatic solution to that suffering? And he realized the pragmatic solution to the suffering was to stop clinging to the self and to act in a way which is in accordance with the fact that we're all dependent on one another as human beings and in the wider world, on nature as well. So the precepts don't have any kind of first cause, as it were. They are a pragmatic way of leading your life, which other people have found lead to greater happiness. Which is interesting for me that that's the case. And the Buddha was. If I think about him from my own, I have a particular flavour, the way I think and see things, which we all do, depending on how we were brought up, And I was originally a scientist, and I'm also very definitely a pragmatist. So I kind of see things from those perspectives, And what I really like about the Buddha was he was great about avoiding trouble, He didn't come up with a creation myth. He just said there was no first cause. Creation myths cause terrible trouble. I mean, there are even universities in America, I think, who believe that who teach that the world was created in 7 days. Now, maybe it was, but I have seen huge amounts of evidence that it wasn't. But a lot about Buddhist practice for me is fascinating, because it seems to go pragmatically right to the core of how to lead our lives without involving us in belief systems which oblige other people to believe with us, otherwise they're bad. Just let me tell you why I liked Matsu, because this is what he said. Matsu did not intend to advocate and I can never pronounce this word, somebody else maybe too, antinomianism. Anybody know how to pronounce that word?
What does it mean?
Pardon?
What does it mean?
It means release from the obligation of observing a moral law. Wonderful word. Release from the obligation of observing a moral law.
What was it again?
Antinomianism.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, Matsu did not intend to advocate a freedom from the obligation of observing a moral law. However, his unconditional identification of Buddha nature with ordinary human mind was because he wanted to include everybody in the practice. That was his intention. He was a kind of Zen communist, He wanted us all to feel equal,
Isn't it also because he came from the Indian tradition where there was so much of a class?
No, yeah, I think he was well down a few centuries after that. Yeah.
Can I say something on that?
Sure.
The lineage actually tells you a lot about who he was. There's a sixth ancestor. Nangaku was his teacher. There was Baso. His great friend was Sekito Keizan in our lineage. His successor was Yakujo, who wrote the first monastic rules, so that tells you something about who he was. Then there was Obaku, and then there was Rinzai.
Okay.
So, I mean, that tells you a lot just in how he presented himself. He was multifaceted.
Right.
Over 120 successors.
Is that right? Gosh.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible? I mean, this was what, 16, 1700 years ago, and they were still having the same debate that we were having the day before yesterday. Nothing changes and everything changes. So, just before I move on, I did want to say that within this tradition, as I understand it, there is the alternative to both these perceptions, and we call it the middle way, and it resolves the dualism between, which is another dualism. If we talk about enlightenment and delusion, that's another dualism, and the resolution of that. I've just written down here one resolution. One way of explaining a resolution is from the Song of Enlightenment, and it begins: have you not seen a man of the Tao at his ease, in his non-active way and beyond learning states, who neither suppresses thoughts nor seeks the real? To him, the real nature of ignorance is Buddha nature, and the non-existent body of the illusion is the Dharmakaya. And the Dharmakaya is the unity of the Buddha with everything that exists. So, I mean, my take on that is that we have to live in the world, and if we live in the world, then when we're within this tradition, one way we can choose to function and operate is to knowingly and consciously be aware that we are in delusion. So we're consciously deluded rather than unconsciously deluded. So we can still operate in the world. I don't know whether this is an appropriate story to tell you, but it's just come into my mind as I was reading that. And he said, "There's no profane or holy." And if you get stuck on either side, it can cause you problems. If you get too profane or too holy, it's an issue. And I don't know whether I should tell you this story, but many years ago, before I was in Zen, I was part of a Ramakrishna Vedanta group. I don't know if any of you know Ramakrishna Vedanta. Very holy. And they advocated celibacy. One of their great things was celibacy. And at the time, I was part of this group. And coincidentally, it was the time when I was writing books about travel and food. The agent I had in London got in touch with me and said there was this chap who lived in Jakarta in Indonesia, and he had an Indonesian friend who ran a chain of hotels, and he wanted a book published on Indonesian cooking with his name on and mine. And was I interested in going out there and spending time with the guy, learning about Indonesian cooking and writing a book. His name was Soraya Winata. And I think if you look on, I've not looked for years, but maybe if you looked on Amazon, it would still be there. Indonesian Cookery by David Scott and Soraya Winata. Anyway, so I fly out to Jakarta, I meet Soraya, and he's a Chinaman, which I didn't know. And at the time, there'd been a lot of trouble for the Chinese in Indonesia. And so he changed his name. So we spent a couple of weeks looking at food in his kitchen, and then we went out for a drink one night, and he told me that the real reason that he'd wanted me to come over to Indonesia was he'd spent 20 years experimenting in the various brothels of Jakarta. One specific brothel that was staffed, however you would say it, by women from a particular island who were skilled in sex. I can only paraphrase it. Basically, the book was How to Fuck for an Hour. If you're a man, for a man, you know. And the deal was that I would go to this brothel with him, and we spend time, and then we'd write the book, and it would be paraphrased How to Fuck for an Hour. And the problem was that I was in this celibate thing. I was far too holy, and I turned him down. And even now, I regret it to this day. I could have been a best-selling author as well as in huge demand. So don't mix up the holy and the profane. Yes, that was a loss.
Couldn't you made profanity into a holiness?
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah. Does anybody, by the way, just want to comment on on that particular story, or on their own experiences of how do you kind of transcend the ordinary, the duality?
Wrong tangent.
Pardon?
You're going in the wrong.
I'm going the wrong tangent. Okay.
So, since we share the same surname, can I go in your place?
Yeah. Okay. I'll try and change the subject. Ish.
I'm afraid that my mind wandered when you. I'm going back to the beginning. My mind wandered when you spoke the first, I suppose, 5 minutes of the talk, or 3 minutes of the talk. In other words, I actually lost the plot.
Well, Ish.
I'm hearing the first.
You know that.
Ish, I've lost the plot as well. We joined the club. It's okay.
I've even forgotten which one was the master and which one was the disciple.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. Was the one that said don't polish the tile because already there's
You
no
know.
need?
That,
Was he the, what was his name and
It was
what?
the ladies on the island were the master.
Ish, give us a break. Let's move on. Okay. I don't know whether I can bring this back to seriousness now. I want. First of all, I wanted to ask you, and then I'll tell you my essential interest in practice is, or my kind of sense of what I would like to manifest as a teacher. I'm not even confident to use that word. But why do you practice?
For me,
Alan?
For me, it's more if I don't practice, I'll live with the less ease. So for me, it's about being more at ease with myself and my environment.
Okay, so it's essentially a pragmatic decision that it works for you in your life if you do practice. Yeah. Thank you.
for me, it makes my life more vibrant and interesting.
Okay. Good. Good.
For me, sometimes it's kind of like a process, and while generally it makes things better, having a specific goal of which actual bit that I'd like to deal with at the moment maybe isn't helpful. You know, so for me, saying now, well, I want to get better at this, or have more ease, or be more peaceful, or do this or do that, is not, you know.
It's not it.
It's not helpful.
Okay. So, sorry, could you just clarify a bit more? What is helpful then?
The overall, that it's a good thing, otherwise I wouldn't do it. But to say I'm here on the Sesshin because I want to be more peaceful, or I want to have less shouting in my head, or I want to see the beauty in the world, can be unhelpful, because it feels like it's a natural process, and whatever bit of it happens this week is whatever bit of it happens.
Okay, that's lovely. So you're open to what arises in the week as being useful or not useful for Emma. So you're sitting in a kind of unstuckness, allowing things to come up. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Morris.
It's a terribly difficult question.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm always nervous when I ask you as well, because you.
But if I have to pin it down, I would say it's the total freedom of the Dharma.
Okay.
And this freedom is manifest throughout the entire world. The taste of salt is the same in every ocean of the world, and the taste of the Dharma is the same. But what do I do with this freedom? I have to make my own way. I can't rely on anyone else. I have to find out what is right and wrong, and I don't use those terms. I use totally different terms. So, you're not right, I'm not right, we're both right.
Both right, no wrong.
I can tell you the two terms that I use instead of good or evil. And there is a traditional way of looking at it, to look at behaviour as either skillful or unskillful.
Okay.
Unskillful behaviour means being unaware of the serious consequences of one's behaviour.
Thank you. Very clear.
I feel that sometimes in my ordinary life, I avoid the reality of what's going on. So, actually, there's this combination of what Roshi was talking about yesterday, this stuck axle. Well, we could be stuck in running away as well as stuck in being stuck, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, sitting and taking the time to sit for a long time with other people, possibly some of the things I might not want to look at, face, or be present to in my life are right there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Why do you practice?
I just wanted to say I'm very jealous because I have no idea.
Why are you?
Not a clue.
Why are you jealous?
Because everyone else seems to have an idea. I'm just no idea.
Oh, you are. Thank you. No idea is fine. No idea is really okay.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Shoji says, it's sort of forcing me to, or helping me to accept my life, or forcing me to accept it and look at it.
Okay.
Instead of running away from it, which is usually what I've done in the past.
Thank you. Sorry.
Gives me a lot of space to look at things in a different way.
Okay.
But I like what comes up on session because I find sometimes the emotion's quite playful.
Yeah.
That's the best way for me to look at them to get to it.
No, I like that. That's for me as well. It allows space. Yeah. The radio noise can quiet down for a while. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Well, I think Roshi was saying yesterday that we're all practicing something all the time. I've tried different kinds of practice and all give pain and sometimes, but consciously practicing something that seems to have a heart seems to be less painful in the long run.
Okay, so it's less painful. Yeah, it reduces the pain. Thank you. Desh, did you want to say something?
Well, it's odd, but I think I've realised that over the years, I've never felt I've had a lot of friends at home, and actually I always think that I have more friends here than at home.
Right.
You know, I don't go have much of a social life.
Okay.
Although I enjoy life very much. But there's a Quaker movement, and it's called Women Welcomes Women. And it means that wherever you can go in the world, you can stay with somebody who's a Quaker. I
Very
always
nice.
feel like that about here.
Okay.
About
We'll call it StoneWater Welcomes Sesshin. How's that? Thank you. It's a sweet thing to say. Well, I've written up here, which I can't quite read, to fathom all the layers of who we are, or who we think we are, until we become fully who we are, which is a long job, maybe a lifetime job, becoming fully who we are. But what I've written down here, my essential interest is how to apply a traditional basis of Zen practice to our daily lives. And the basic message of that, to begin with, is that essentially we're all intrinsically whole. and complete. So that's the backdrop to, sorry.
I was just going to say, what's coming up for me is we kind of all talk about how we're deluded and things, and then you ask us why we sit. Is why we think we sit why we sit?
Say that again. Is why we think we sit is why we sit?
No, is why we think we sit. Is the answers we've all just given you, is that actually why we're sitting? Or is that what our mind's made up to justify?
I don't know. I mean, I feel that there's a part of us that needs, traditionally you talk about raising Bodhi mind, don't we? We raise Bodhi mind. We kind of initiate something in us which we call Bodhi mind. And my sense is that there's some part of us that there's a perspective that we can experience and see the world through that we normally don't, which we can paraphrase as the experience that comes out of no mind or emptiness, and we normally don't experience the world or perceive it through that lens. For a reason that I don't know, for some of us, not everyone in the world, but certainly for some of us, that is kind of knocking on our door inside. It wants acknowledgement, it wants to be experienced. And once we open the door slightly, and it gets a foot in, and we get on the train, then it wants the door wider and wider open. And when that happens, then our decision to come to Sesshin, or a decision to carry on practice, is almost out of our hands. It just arises, it's what we need to do. We don't consciously, we just need to do it,
And that comes back to the precept at the beginning. What I was kind of half raising is, is there a point in choosing to keep them? Kind of what you're saying there, that actually when it gets hold of you, it just, I don't know.
Well,
my obsession with free will again, I think.
The emphasis, as I understand it, on our tradition, on the Zen tradition, is that out of Zazen, when we allow unstuckness to experience ourselves as unstuck, and allow this quality in us to arise, then pragmatically what I see for most of us is that we start to live naturally in accord with the precepts without having to make a conscious decision to do so. And I don't know how it works, but I do see that the ground or the sentiment, the quality that arises for a lot of us toward the end of Sesshin, not necessarily at the beginning, is a sense of compassion. And I don't know. I just have to say all my hands. I don't know where that comes from, but I do see that it does arise, and it answers for me the question that I wrestled with for years and years in my life, and the desire, the wish for there to be a kind of ground of being that was kind. And how could we live in that? How could we choose to lead a life that was based on a ground of being that was completely neutral and didn't care? But what I see is that when and again pragmatically, experientially, is that the looser the grip of the clinging of the self is, the looser the clinging, the more I can live at ease, and the more I care about other people living at ease. And it's that simple, really. I don't need philosophical basis for it. It's just a purely experiential feeling. Keith?
Just on that, I just thought it struck me that sort of search for something, which is like mirrors my sort of search, and finding that in the universe there's nothing that really cares or doesn't care. But in engaging in that process, we then become the vehicle for care and compassion.
Yeah.
I sense when we're sitting as well that your body relaxes and you become more at peace. And I don't know, that maybe that's what keeps you doing it, or it gives you that foundation, because we do want peace.
Sure, we all want it, yeah. Here's a left field thing that's just come into my mind. I was talking with somebody about the other day, and I've got no answer to it. And why do you think that love is never talked about in? Well, not never. That would be wrong. But rarely talked about in our tradition.
That's a good question.
Maybe it's similar to the washing our mouths out when talking about enlightenment. It's something that arises, but this is the paradox you were saying about kindness. I think about the Dalai Lama was saying, my religion is kindness.
Yeah, happiness, yeah.
That kindness seems to flow out from the mystery of it.
Yeah.
And
well, so if we talked about love, if we made it a kind of conscious thing, it would in a way mask it. Is that what you're suggesting?
Maybe it's that head on top of our head. I mean.
Okay. Yeah. And okay.
Could you? I mean, love and compassion. What's the difference?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know, but they are talked about differently in different traditions.
Sounds like it means the same to me.
Okay, to you it means the same thing.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of reiterate what Amanda said. When I talked with Miranda, when I talked with Maizumi Roshi, he said one of the reasons we don't talk about it in Japan, at least, is gets mixed up with sexual love.
I see.
And so they use compassion in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a skillful means, as Morris would say.
Or romantic love, I should say.
Romantic love, yeah. It's just coming to my mind. Roshi talked a little yesterday about emptiness, and I wanted to share with you my own. I don't think I have a complete experience of emptiness. I don't think I embody the kind of it seems silly or strange to talk about the totality of emptiness, but I do see that as I see it, the emptiness has lots of different inner way qualities, and I don't have the wholeness of it. But when I think about emptiness, so this is a one perspective view. It's not the total view of emptiness. But the question that always arises, or does arise for me when I see the word emptiness, is emptiness of what? And what makes sense for me in terms of practice and why we practice is that practice can or could or sometimes does release me from or allows me to be empty of clinging and attachment and concepts and views and all those kind of things that keep us stuck. Because we are stuck when we have a fixed view of how it is or how it should be, and particularly how my life should be. It never is. The script of your life is never the one that you thought you'd written. It always seems to be a script written by some stranger who didn't really know you intimately. But out of that, what arises for me is the opportunity to be more creative. Because creativity, for me, can only arise out of me not being stuck on how I see things should be. So that's one aspect of practice that is important to me. And when Sue said about space that arises, and that space seems to me, it happens less often to me now. I think I was talking to Bob about it the other day. I'm slightly getting fretful that my creative star is on the wane. I hope it's just a phase. And that isn't the case, and that I can because unless we keep reinventing ourselves, and it does die, I mean, particularly it seems to me pragmatically in older men. I know a lot of couch potatoes who are over 60 who decided the sofa's the safest place. And the telly's the safest entertainment. Okay.
What you just, may I?
Sure. Yeah, go.
What you just said made me think of a better answer to why do I come, and that is so that hopefully that script would always be a surprise.
Yeah, it will always be a surprise. Yeah, and I think you're good at that, Ish. You know, you keep yourself busy with lots of different activities, and yeah, so it works.
But who wrote this? Who's writing it?
I give in.
God is the author of the script.
Is that what you think? I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just curious.
I sometimes think that if I, well, let's say, it's like the sort of feeling like if I do nothing, nothing will happen.
Yeah. You know, that's what you've just articulated is a really interesting koan for me, because when I get stuck, and I don't know if this is anybody else's experience, when I get stuck, I don't know how long to wait for the universe to come up with a solution, or whether to take it by the neck myself. You know, how long do you wait, and when do you act? It's a really interesting question. I think we all, have to come to terms with. I don't have any answer for that. You know, sometimes I wait too long, and other times I go too fast. A really good analogy is rock climbing. You know, when you're rock climbing, you have to wait. You have to be patient to wait until you find the right grip, and then you move. I was terrible at rock climbing. I was far too impatient. I wanted to go for the grip right away, and always came off the rope. You know, that was a real lesson for me. To wait sometimes, to be more patient.
It's like when you're waiting for a bus, and
yeah.
You decide, no bus coming.
I think I'll walk. Yeah. 3 come. Yeah.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with rock climbing is that you have to do something.
You have to do something. Yeah. You can't stay there. Definitely no.
And the thing that one of the intriguing things is that often you don't know what it is you're doing. When you get stuck, you think, okay.
Life in your hands as well.
Yeah.
What was that?
Life in your hands.
Oh yeah.
Climbing, you first do that. Yeah.
All you know is you can't stay there.
Yeah.
So you've got to go somewhere.
That's a great lesson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And often, that next move is not. You don't know what you're doing.
You don't know where you're going to go for. Yeah.
And also, when you're rappelling, if you stay with rock climbing, you really have to trust the person who's got the rope.
Oh, and the other rope, yeah. It's a good analogy.
It's like you're completely dependent on somebody else and actually letting your life be in
their hands, yeah. It's not a situation like, you can put a duvet over your head and stay in bed. You have to move. Okay, we're nearly finished. I just wanted to, I've written down here, scribbled down in the cafe this morning, it's putting practice into practice. Putting practice into practice. I put 4 steps. First step. This is obviously a lesson to myself, but you can share it if you like. First step. Our first step is to really see that we usually live in the past or the future. Most of us really are truly present in our lives. And much of what we do is bound up in fearfulness. Is that right? Mm-hmm. A lot of what we do is bound up in fearfulness. Fearfulness often of really feeling what we feel, really feeling the moment. I mean, I won't ask you to divulge it in public, but I would ask you to internally think, what is it right now that you're avoiding experiencing? What is it that you're avoiding experiencing right now? Okay, the second step is to begin to be conscious of the barriers to our free expression of our lives by our clinging to this sense of our own small self. How restricting are you on yourself? How much do you tie yourself by this need that we all have to create a barrier and protect ourselves from out there. And find somewhere firm to stand where we can feel safe. Even though we all know that there isn't anywhere like that. What a relief there isn't, it would be terribly boring. Third step. Okay. It's the direct experience of whatever is happening in our lives right now. Can you really experience it, what's happening in your life now? And these are all hard things to do, you know, they're really hard to do. It requires all the things that they say, you know, persistence, endurance, commitment, and the phrase that Roshi uses, which I really like, which is voluntary restraint. Voluntary restriction. The fourth step is much nicer. That's to exercise serenity, lightness and pliancy. Pliancy means to be pliable, you know, to be loose, to be relaxed, to be light on your feet. Can you be light on your feet? It's hard, isn't it? I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm plodding along. And other times I feel like I'm skipping. But I guess the plodding isn't necessarily part of enjoying the skipping. Okay. Oh, final thing. How long do we have to practice for? How long?
We.
I.
We.
Me. How long do I have to practice for? Any suggestion? Pardon?
Indefinitely.
Indefinitely, yeah. Forever. And what a relief. I'm really pleased. I want something to do. Okay. There's 5 minutes if anybody has any comment or suggestions or questions.
Just wanted to go back to, you know, the why do you practice, which is slightly different to why come on Sesshin, but I suppose that, you know, Zazen, whatever else this practice is about, is the core of that is a fantastic investigation. It's possible through, and you know, also that experimental attitude, which this form of Buddhism particularly promotes, of don't take my word for it, check it out yourself.
Yeah.
And you can do that anywhere, very simply. You don't need much equipment.
No, isn't that a relief? Yeah.
You know, it's not too expensive.
It's not too expensive. Perhaps not in terms of cash, but
terms of need. So you know, it's that's quite a gift to discover that.
Yeah.
But I think, like Marty said, I mean, what I see in Zazen is I'm constantly constructing a story. You know, so even about why do I practice? Okay, well, I practice because this and this, and it falls down again. In Zazen, if I let it, it falls down. But then I'm building something else up, another story. You know, it's constantly building an image and letting it go.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when that stops, some folk have a problem with it stopping as well. You know, we want it to stop, and then when it does stop, we get bored and think, why are we here? When you finally get bored with your own stuff, you think, huh? What next? Anyone else?
I'd like for you to explore that little piece you said about emptiness, and you saying and love. Christians talk about God as love, whatever that might mean. And the paradox of this training is that it does generate more kindness, more selflessness, and more love, really. But well. I suppose that's what I have to sit on, really. But
yeah, and as Roshi said yesterday, and as Mizumi Roshi's book was titled, if we can appreciate our lives more, what a gift. If out of practice we can learn to appreciate our lives, not just our lives, but a sunny day, the rain, cold, all those things. There's a Christian phrase, isn't it, about the lilies in the field? And yeah, it's a great gift. And we don't have to pay for it. We can appreciate our lives without having to pay anyone. I'm sorry.
And we never know when our life will end.
We don't.
And Roshi died very young. So, and
Yeah.
the moment we have that we are alive, what Tenshin Roshi said yesterday, we see out of these eyes and hear from these ears, but one day this very bag of bones will be gone.
Yeah.
So the moment of seeing is remarkable, the moment of hearing.
Well, maybe we should end by all wishing each other a mutually long life.
Well, what's the address of those women on the island?
Yeah. I'll give you Sarai's address.